So let's get started for this part of the experiment. Here you can see I have three cups. I am really sorry for having these fancy cups, but I don't have plain cups at home at right now, so you'll have to bear with me. Now we have these three cups and I have labeled them as, okay, let me use a scale. I have labeled them as C, R and T. Now C represents the control setup. This is the setup where we would not add any enzyme. That is, we would not be adding any detergent solution to it. Now then we have R. R is the experiment setup for room temperature. That means that the source of enzyme that we would be adding to it would be at room temperature, and hence the enzyme would be functional. And T. This T represents temperature. Now this temperature would be this. This means that we would be adding the detergent solution, that is the source of our enzyme, which would be strongly heated. So here we would be having no enzyme in C. In R we would be having normal enzyme, and in T we would be having a denatured enzyme, which is essentially equal to have not having an enzyme, because the enzyme would not be functional in either of the C or the T. So let's get started and see what this experiment holds for us. As I have told you, I would not be adding any enzyme source to the C jar. Now coming to the R one, here I am adding a solution of detergent to it. Now please remember that detergents, good quality detergents, usually have lipases in them. So we expect that this one has lipase, and I have added lipase to it. Okay. Simultaneously, I am adding a heated solution of detergent to this tea cup. Now I am adding it. This is our source of enzyme. I have added it. Okay, it was a clear solution after heating. Now we would have to wait for, let's say, 5 minutes. Okay, so our 5 minutes are over. Within these 5 minutes, we expect that the enzyme which was active in the R cup would have digested the lipase and would thus have brought down the pH somewhere around 8 or 9, something like that. And in the tea, I would not be using the same stirrer, I'm really sorry. And in the tea, since our enzyme was denatured, we expect that there would not be any significant action in it. So now is the time to add indicator and to see if the pH has really fallen down below 7, beyond 7, that is somewhere around 8 or 9. And as you know, turmeric is a very good indicator for such situations. Turmeric under normal circumstances is yellow, as you can see here, it's yellow in color. But when added to a basic solution, that means a solution which has a pH of beyond 7, it turns red. Okay, so I would be adding first to the control setup. Okay. So as we can see that the color is yellow and not red. It's yellow. Okay, that's okay. Now we would be adding turmeric to our setup, which was at room temperature. I am adding turmeric to it. Okay, so you can see here, as soon as it touches the solution, it starts turning red. Yeah, so this solution is really basic right now. I mean, so much basic that even a natural indicator like this is giving a strong color. Okay, so there it goes. Now for the final part, which determines the success of our experiment, is the one setup which was heated. So this tea setup here, it was the solution of detergent which was added to it was strongly heated, and so ideally the enzyme should have denatured, the lipase enzyme in the solution should have denatured, and thus would have rendered itself non-functional. So we would be adding turmeric to it. Okay, I do not see any red color as of now, and I really hope I'm using the other end of the spoon so that I accidentally do not add any enzyme to it. Okay, so there it goes, no red color, even though the enzyme solution was added at the same time in the R as well as in the T, and certainly there was no enzyme in C, and we can see that the results are identical in C and T, which as we expected, because in C there is no enzyme and in T there is an enzyme, but it has been denatured, so it really means that there is no functional enzyme, and where there is a functional enzyme we can see a red color. Let me get you a closer look, and here you can see the strong color in R, which is due to the pH falling beyond 7, because fatty acids and the lipids have been broken down into glycerol and fatty acids by the enzyme lipase, which was in the detergent. So this brings us to the end of this experiment. Thank you for bearing with me.
Hi, good morning to all of you. What do you mean I can't use this mask in this video? Okay. Good morning to one and all present here. I'm Aditya Singh, and today, due to this pandemic situation, you are seeing me in this video. So, me and the boys, by the way, boys is the unanimous term used here for us all, that is Avni, Ritika, Sejal, Ronak, Sahil, and obviously me. So me and the boys have created a video, totally virtual, on the biochemistry practical for you all. Plus we have put on a great effort on this video and want your appreciation, I guess. So do appreciate us.
Material required are as follows: boiled water 3 glasses, buffer tablets of different pH, that is 9.2, 4 and 7, syringe of 10 ml and pH indicator strip. Material required are as follows: boiled water 3 glasses, buffer tablets of different pH, that is 9.2, 4 and 7. The aim of a practical is to prepare a buffer solution of different pH.
Before starting the experiment, let us discuss some basic principles of this practical. Now, what is buffer? Basically, buffer is an aqueous solution containing a weak acid and its conjugate base, or a weak base and its conjugate acid. A buffer pH changes very little when a small amount of strong acid or a base is added to it. It is used to prevent any change in the pH of a solution regardless of solute. Buffer solutions are used as a means of keeping pH at a nearly constant value in a wide variety of chemical applications. For example, blood in the human body is a buffer solution. Buffer solutions are resistant to pH change because of the presence of equilibrium between the acid and its conjugate base. Buffer solutions are necessary in a wide range of applications. In biology, they are necessary for keeping the correct pH for proteins to work. If the pH moves outside of the narrow range, the proteins stop working and can fall apart. A buffer of carbonic acid and bicarbonate is needed in blood plasma to maintain a pH between 7.35 and 7.45. Industrially, buffer solutions are used in fermentation processes and in setting the correct condition for dyes used in coloring fabrics.
Okay, let's start the practical. First of all, we have to boil the water to an optimum boiling temperature. As you can see, the water is boiled. Now keep this boiled water separately for some time so that the temperature drops down and we can start further. Now take 3 containers of glass and add 100 ml of water to each of them. As I don't have any measuring cylinder, so I am using this syringe of 10 ml for accurate measurement of water. Now we will fill the syringe till 10 ml mark. ये थोड़ा सा ज्यादा है, इसीलिए इसको थोड़ा सा आप खाली कर दीजिए। ये पूरा 10 ml तक मार्क तक भर चुका है। अब इसको now we have to pour this water into the glass and this step has to be repeated 10 times so as to get 100 ml water in a glass. As you can see, all the 3 glasses are filled with 100 ml of water. Now open the cap of pH tablet 4 very carefully. See, very carefully, and now pour it into glass number 1. Done. Now repeat the same step with pH tablet with pH 7 in glass number 2 and pH tablet with pH 9.2 in the glass number 3. Now keep these glasses undisturbed for some time so that it can mix well. As you can see, a finally prepared buffer solution is ready. Now, with the help of these pH indicator strips, we will check the pH or is there any change in the pH as we have used boiled water for this experiment. Now, I am using this pH indicator strip in glass number 1. Let it be dry for some time. Similarly, I am putting this strip in glass number 2 and in glass number 3 also. Now with the help of this pH scale, we can see or we can check whether the pH is changed or it is same as it is. That I have used, that the pH tablet I have poured in these. In glass number 1, I have poured pH tablet 4. In glass number 2, pH tablet 7. And in glass number 3, pH tablet 9.2. So, firstly I am taking this pH strip that I have put in glass number 1. It is slightly orangish in color. So, let us just see. It is ये बिल्कुल pH number 5 से coincide कर रहा है. It is exactly pH number 5 and as you can see it has increased as I have used pH number 4 in glass number 1. Now pH indicator strip number 2 that I have put in glass number 2. It is showing pH 7 neutral, and I have put pH 7 tablets, so no change, as you can see. It is strip number 3. It is darkish green in color, and it is just same as pH 10. You can see the color. Okay. So in glass number 3 also we can see that the pH has changed from 9.2 to bit 9.8 or 9.9 we can say. So yes, the pH has changed. The reason behind can be boiled water. So yes, surely it is boiled water. So the reason behind this will be explained to you all by my fellow mate Ritika.
So the reason behind change of pH because of boiling water is that when water is boiled, both hydrogen and hydroxide ion concentration increases to same extent. Hence, it is neutral. It is sufficient to boil the water for 5 to 10 minutes so that it releases the dissolved carbon dioxide. If we want accuracy in our measurements, we should use water that contains only the ions that result from this equilibrium. Water from tap would contain many ions that would slightly affect this equilibrium. To perform this practical, we need to be careful about some things. So, here are some of the precautions we should take while performing the experiment. Number 1. Open the cap of buffer tablets very carefully. Number 2. All the containers of glasses used must be cleaned properly. Number 3. No air bubbles must be formed in the syringe as it can change the measurement. Number 4. Wash your hands before and after doing the practical. Thank you everyone. Bye bye.
Good morning to all of you. This is Ujwal and I am going to tell you about the steps involving in protein prediction. So method for protein structure prediction are experimental method and computational method. Experimental method include X-ray crystallography, NMR spectrography, cryo-EM, and the computational method involves homology method, for recognition method, and ab initio method. Then now we will discuss. We are going to here we are using computational method for predicting protein structure. So there are two methods involved in computational method, that is template modeling method, that is based on the template based modeling, and another one is template free modeling, that is in which there is no template based model. Now we are going to now we will see how we will use this method. So first I will tell you about homology method, that is template based model method, and after that I will show you template free modeling, free modeling in which there is no any template. So the steps are as follows. So first we have to open our Chrome and open our Google and search GenBank. GenBank. After doing so, we have to click on GenBank overview. Here our team, our group is working on Drosophila SSP70 protein, which accession number is AJ001365. After writing this here and click on search button, then we will get the MRI sequence of our gene. So that is, this page will open and it so that there are 2099 base pair mRNA is present. Now we are predicting protein structure, so we need to know the amino acid sequence for knowing the protein, folding. So for obtaining protein amino acid sequence, we have to click on protein ID. After clicking on that, we will get our protein sequence, and there are several other information are given here, like on which organism we get this protein amino acid sequence, and on which title, journal, reference, author in which they are published, this structure is published. So here we get our protein structure, amino acid sequence. So this amino acid sequence. Now for further processes, we need our amino acid sequence in FASTA format. It is a kind of format where we will get our amino acid sequence without number, like this. So we have to simply copy it. Now we have to go on another tab, and here now we get amino acid. Now we have to go we are using another tool named ProtParam tool. For accessing this tool, we have to write XPassive ProtParam. So this tool is actually a computational tool allowed to know about physical and chemical parameter of our given protein, that is amino acid sequence we get. Now we will get physical and chemical parameters of that amino acid, that protein. Now here we have to paste our protein amino acid sequence and then click on compute parameter. Then after clicking on that, we will get our amino acid sequence in 1020 this way. Our amino acid is total 633, I guess. Yes, 633 here. We will get our physical and chemical properties, like number of amino acids, there are 633 amino acid. Molecular weight is 69,31614. This molecular weight in is Dalton, not in kilodalton. For converting in kilodalton, we have to divide by 100, so 693.16 kilodalton. Theoretical pi, that is isoelectric point, is 5.56. Now we will get our amino acid composition also, which is in the number, in terms of number and percentage in our MRI, in our protein. We also get number of positively charged residue and number of negatively charged residue here, that is 92 and 80 and 92. Now we will also get carbon, hydrogen, the atomic composition. There is the atoms, and this is formula we can write also here, this way also. There are also various parameters shown here, like inner stability index, which is 37.32%. On is also a grand average of hydropaticity, that is gravy. So gravy is a very important parameter because it shows the hydropaticity. So this for our protein, this is minus 0.456. So this is now we know our chemical and physical properties of our amino acid, and we also get our primary structure. Primary structure means that is a sequence of amino acid we get. So now our primary structures are complete. Now we are moving on secondary structure. For secondary structure we will use another tool named as PhyRate 2. this is the another tool, FireA2 protein 4 recognition server. So here we have to click. This tool provides a secondary structure. So this tool take 4 to 5 hours for giving our result. So this tool, so we have to put our some data. We have to put our email address, and where after completing the process, this tool will give send a link on. After clicking order, we get our secondary structure. So here protein name and amino acid sequence. Here we have to put our amino acid sequence in FASTA format like this, and then FireA search. Look, this is email ID job NEA, and estimated total time for predicting the structure is 4.1 hour plus minus 3.6 hour. So this tool will get give our result in 4 to 5 hours, and will take 4 to 5 hours, and then send a link after completing his job. Now I have a structure. I have result of this tool, that is this is the result. That is, there are various models of secondary structure given here, like template. Like approximately we have 120 template for our amino acid sequence secondary structure. 120 amino acid sequence that might be possible in our protein structure, that is alpha helix or beta pleated sheet, that is secondary structure of our protein. So this will give. Now we will see a particular model. Like this is a particular model, any model secondary structure, and we will see some things. Like we will see our protein structure, and that is from where to where this form alpha helix, from where to where this form beta pleated sheet. So here we have 633 amino acid sequence. So we will see that we are seeing that there from 2 to 8, 2 to 7, this amino acid sequence will form a beta pleated sheet, and now from 50 to 58, this amino acid sequence will form alpha helix in our protein, in our 3D structure. So that a rough idea prediction of our secondary structure. And there is one more thing. We are also seeing that like a red mark, like colors, red mark, yellow, green, blue, what they showing that prediction of having this structure in our protein, in our 3D structure. Like this is confidence key, that is this structure 601 to 6010, this protein sequence will form a beta pleated 6 in 3D structure. This is confirmed, highly confident key. This is possible. I hope you are getting my point. So that will show the secondary structure. That's all about our secondary structure. Now we will move toward our tertiary structure. For tertiary structure, we will use another tool known as Swiss model. So here we have, after writing this, we have to click on that and start modeling. Now we have to paste our protein sequence, amino acid sequence here, and then build model. And this tool also take 5 to 10 minutes according to the network for giving the result. So we can't wait so long. So I have done it before. So this tool result is, for our amino acid sequences, there are 50 template for our 3D structure and 9 models predicted that might be possible for our protein. So here are 9 structure: 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. We can do what we can also there are 9 models, so we can do a structure assessment of each models. Like I am going with one model 1. It will take some time, let's wait. Now this is open. So this tool give our structure assessment, like our protein sequence. This tool give our protein structure, amino acid, for our amino acid Ramachandran plot, and various another structure, various another parameters or information like chain A and B, and quality estimate, protein size residue, protein number, etc. We also see our protein structure in different form, like this is one form, that is hyperbol. This is one form. Another form is we have various form to observe our protein in 3D form, like cartoon. Here we will see our protein, like this is a alpha pleated sheet, beta pleated, alpha helix, beta pleated sheet, and all. So by this way we can observe our protein 3D structure and protein tertiary structure. So now until now we are discussing about the template based model techniques to know the protein structure, protein folding, that how protein is folding and what are the possibilities that might have in our protein folding. So now we are discussing about homology, a template based model. Now there is one more method, that is template free method. So for template free method we have another tool, that is iTaser, which stands for Iterative Threading Assembly Refinement. It's a hierarchical approach to protein structure prediction and structure based annotation. This tool will take approximately 1 to 2 days, 24 to 30 hours to give the result, as it is template free method. So this is predicting this tool predicting our protein structure on the basis of possibilities, so we can't use this tool because this tool requires official ID, so we can't use this tool. So that's all about our protein structure till now. Steps involving for predicting protein structure. So what we have learned till now, that is tools and method. That is first we go to gene bank and write our accession number to know our mRNA sequence and amino acid sequence. After that we go to another tool, that is ExPassive ProtParam, which help in to know our physical and chemical parameters for our amino acid sequence. After that we predict our secondary structure by using phyret2 tool, and after that we use another tool, that is Swiss model tool, for our tertiary structure. and iTaser tool. For iTaser tool also we use also iTaser tool for tertiary structure, which is template free, template independent method. So that's all. This is our group from left to right. Vakul, after that me, then Swati, and then Gunjan. Thank you all for listening patiently. I hope you understand and enjoy the steps that involve in protein structure. Thank you.
Separation of components from a mixture of red and blue ink by paper chromatography.
Material required: beaker. I don't have any beaker, so I'm using a glass. Whatman filter paper strip, toothpick, scale, pencil, and a mixture of red and blue inks. Take a Whatman filter paper strip and using a pencil draw a horizontal line about 1.5 cm from the end of a paper. Then draw another line vertically. This is the vertical line from the center of the paper. Name the point at which the two lines intersecting, labeled as P. Using a toothpick, put a drop of a mixture of red and blue ink at the point P. This is the mixture of red and blue ink. Put it at the center P very carefully. Like this, and let it dry. Put another drop of a red and blue ink mixture at the same spot. After drying, like this, so that the spot is rich in the mixture. Pour the water into the glass and the chamber. This is used as the solvent. Suspend the filter paper vertically in the glass containing the solvent in such a way that the pencil line remains about 2 cm of the solvent level, and keep it undisturbed. Notice the rising solvent along with the red and blue ink. After the solvent has raised enough, you will notice two different spots of blue and red color on the filter paper. Take the filter paper out of the jar and using a pencil mark the distance that the solvent has raised on the paper. This is called the solvent front. And dry the filter paper for a minute. Drying, put the pencil marks at the center of a red ink spots and the blue ink spot. Measure the distance of two spots, red and blue, from the original line. This is the original line, and the distance of the solvent from the original line. The retention factor, or RF, is defined as the distance traveled by the compound divided by the distance traveled by the solvent. Calculate the RF value of the red and blue ink using the formula. The distance traveled by the red ink from the original line is 8.2 cm. The distance traveled by the red ink from the original line is 5.6 cm. And the distance traveled by the solvent from the original line is 9.1 cm. So the RF value for red ink 0.91 and the RF value for the blue ink is 0.61. Precautions: keep the jar undisturbed. Spots should be small and rich in mixture. Allow the spot to dry before putting the strip in the jar. Keep the strip erect, do not let it curl. Do not allow the spot to dip in the solvent.